Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Music Podcast. Once again, thank you to my return visitors and my subscribers. I'm always so glad to have you. I appreciate you. Today, a very special guest with me, a singer, a guitarist, a songwriter, a producer, multi-instrumentalist, a reluctant member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, maybe, Mr. Todd Rundgren. He has played on or produced a number of iconic albums such as Meatloaf's Bad Out of Hell, New York Dolls debut, Grand Funk's We Are an American Band, just so many. Todd's innovative solo work pleased millions of fans and influenced generations of musicians all over the world. Todd has just released a live record called the Arena Tour Live on Cleopatra Records, and he's set to go back out on the road. Unbelievable. Still Me, Still We 2025 tour, more than 20 dates all across the Midwest and eastern half of the U.S. And he will be on a short run of dates with Heart as well. Todd, so honored to have you. Thanks for taking the time.
Certainly my pleasure.
It's unbelievable. Let's start there. You're somewhere over 50 now. Uh, you could stay home. You could stay home, watch reruns of Gilligan's Island.
Not according to the IRS.
It's unbelievable. I see the energy you have and the desire you have to get out there and play this music for people. So thankful that you are doing that and have that energy. What keeps you going, really? What is it? Is it the interaction with the fans? Is it the music itself? Or just kind of a workout for you to keep yourself in shape? What really drives you to get out there?
Well, I do enjoy performing, and I think that the act itself is probably contributes to your longevity in the
Mhm.
same way that, Tony Bennett never stopped performing, and the fact that he never stopped performing enables him to continue to perform into his 90s.
Yeah.
And, it's not like riding a bicycle, you can't like stop for a while and then figure you can just pick up wherever you left off.
Right.
There's this, the element of, well, at least in the kind of music that I do, a certain element of stamina and sort of you breath control, things that you learn while you're doing it, so uh, tricks to get through a set without blowing your voice up and that sort of thing. And um, you can forget a lot of that stuff or lose a lot of that, that stamina or that edge
Yeah.
if you just let it, if you just vegetate, essentially. I think the same probably goes for songwriting. If you suddenly stop writing songs, it's hard to start again.
Yeah.
It's a thing that you have to almost do out of habit, um, or out of a sort of a discipline. So I say that performing is always enjoyable to get in front of people and to express yourself. Creating the music is actually, is work.
Yeah.
And it's kind of supposed to be work, It's
Yeah.
not supposed to, it's like, if the ground was covered with gold nuggets, gold wouldn't be worth anything,
Right.
because it
Right.
would be no trouble to get it.
Right.
And it's kind of the same thing with art, if you don't invest yourself somehow, and make it at least a little bit painful or uncomfortable, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
You're just doing the same thing you would have done otherwise. I mean, in Jackson Pollock, I mean, nobody knew what he was going through inside, but he was going through something inside, even though he was just throwing paint around,
Right. Right. Yeah, and it's great. It's art. What you do is art. And and what you said just there. I think about, the things like you've produced. I've heard a lot about certain things. where you had a tension in the studio, especially like Andy Partridge with the XTC record.
Yeah.
That was pretty rough. Janis Joplin didn't happen because of that. But Greg Gaffin, Bad Religion. So there's a tension in a lot of those productions that you were, especially that you were involved in. Do you think that is something that inspires greatness? That tension in the studio, did it make for better recordings, possibly?
I don't think necessarily because, there was no tension at all making um we're an American band, for instance, and there was no record that I made that equaled the tension of Skylarking
Okay.
with XTC. So there's a spectrum in there, and no two projects are the same.
Okay.
And it's especially if, someone has never worked with you before,
Yeah.
they may find the way that you get things done, even though they want the results that you have gotten for somebody else, the way you got those results is not their style or
Hmm.
something like that.
Right. Right.
And that's, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there is tension. I think there was, we had a little bit of tension when we were doing Forever Now and Psychedelic First, but in the end, it was a giant leap forward for them,
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that we didn't get to do more of that. We've spoken over the years about, yeah, another Psych Furs record, but
Yeah.
I don't know whether that was just sort of a combination of, elements that, you know, it it's a coincidence. Often things are just a coincidence. The success or failure of them
Okay.
can be as much a coincidence, and the tension in the studio may or may not be a contributing factor. Uh, it certainly didn't stop us from creating, pastoral moments on Skylarking.
Mhm. Oh,
Very
absolutely.
kind of, stress-free kind of things like
Yeah.
grass.
Right.
So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think when it gets down to it, as long as everybody prioritizes the music and the experience that a listener has in the music, then you can get through it and you can also create something that really achieves its goals.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. I see something in the press release, a quote from you. It says the show is kind of a story with a message. Even though a year has passed, I still think that the story needs to be told. What is that story you feel needs to be told with this tour? And the other thing, when you play this set, it's you play for a long time, so the story that needs to be told is full and thorough. So tell us a little bit about the purpose of that story that you need to tell.
Yeah, it's hard trying to figure out when to pee.
Yeah,
You know.
no doubt.
So um, if I can make it, you can make it. All right. Um, well, you could say that a, what happened in November threw a lot of people off kilter. And the tour previous to that was kind of, the subtext of the tour is a plea to people, to kind of think differently and also think about other people, you know.
Yeah.
Don't just think about yourself. Think about yourself, but sometimes you have to think about yourself critically,
Mhm.
and don't ignore other people.
Yeah.
And it was in some ways just kind of a plea to everybody to, when you go to the polls, please be humane,
Yeah.
think about other people. Don't just think about how angry you are, and vote because you're angry or because you want somebody else to hurt, and that message did not reach far enough, I guess, or was not powerful enough. So now it's still the same thing, but it's gotten even more urgent.
Yeah.
because, because of the daily cruelties. So
Yeah.
I think that even listening to the same songs that I did, and even singing the same song that I did a year ago when we were in one situation, they all seem to have a different meaning or uh, diff, a different kind of importance. If they have importance, they have a different kind at this point than they did a year ago.
Right, right. Yeah. The message is different. Everything is different. Yeah.
Everything's different now. So
Yeah. What can fans expect to hear in the set list? Is something from every era? Are you touching on?
it's pretty well spread out, and I
Great.
said before that it's things that I know that fans enjoy, but not necessarily the obvious things,
Right.
and things that I and the band enjoy playing. So that in the end, we hope to be mutually satisfied.
Yeah.
And it seems like, people who have seen the show have no complaints about it, especially in that if they haven't seen the show yet, I play some things that they never expected I would play or that I've never played before.
That's great.
Um, in addition to that, I try and hit the things that they do that they would like to hear, as long as they don't conflict with my overall kind of with the arc that I'm trying to create.
Okay.
Like for instance, I can tell them if you come to the show solely to hear bang the drum all day, you will be disappointed. So I will I will give you that warning up
Yeah.
front,
Yeah.
because because it's not a part of this show. It just doesn't make any sense in the context of the show.
Yeah.
There's other silly stuff, equally silly stuff.
Right.
That,
Right.
it's not as if the show is so deadly serious that we don't have our moments. We do have our moments, but it bang the drum was always a pain in the ass anyway because we had to haul the fucking timbales out for me, you know, and, so it was always took longer to do that song just to get into the song, and the song isn't that long to start with,
Right.
just to
Right.
do that, and then take them off the stage. Every got to go back to normal, right?
But I think the real fans would love to hear something, off the beaten path, so to speak. I love that. And you've got such a vast, varied, diverse catalog. You do so many different things. And progressive in the real sense of the word, much like a Zappa or a Bowie, where you have all these different transformations, and there's so much to play. So there's plenty to hear, no doubt. Um, the digital, you've always embraced like um the digital age, um, advancements in technology, so many things. From the first graphics tablet you had, the full-length enhanced CD, one of the first ever, Patronet, which we now have a Patreon platform that's very similar to your ideas. Um,
Yeah, well, Patronage is not dead. It's now called Global Nation.
okay,
And
okay,
just as a sidebar here, when I go out on the road, everybody's going to know about Global Nation
great,
because
great.
that's where my new music and all of my curated rarities are going to be available, and where I will, if I do any social interaction, that's where I'm going to do it, in my
Fantastic.
space.
Very cool. Very cool. That's great. But you've always embraced that kind of thing. So I wonder, I was putting this together and I'm like, what does Todd think of streaming services and the accessibility to music these days? It's easier for bands. Is it good for music or bad for music, do you think?
Well, it's different for music. I mean, there are a number of elements in the transformation. Streaming is one of the elements, but the other, I think the other significant element was accessibility for the um, record making tools. In other words, now all these kids need is a laptop and a microphone, it's like
Pro
audio
Tools, you're on your way.
audio interface, or GarageBand or something like that,
Yep,
and they can start making real music,
yep,
and some of them will make junk and some of them will make real music,
yep.
and they would not have had the opportunity to otherwise. So that is a great, egalitarian thing that happens when the price of those tools came down and became accessible to everybody. Uh, by the same token, no matter how talented you were, the record label was a gateway. And unless you got a record deal, you had no audience. You could build up an audience the traditional way just by going out and playing and playing and playing, and then do little independent releases of your own and stuff like that. There was always that tradition, but most artists or many artists would aspire to have the support that a record label gave you. In other words, they paid you money to make the records,
Right. Right.
and nowadays, you have to find the resources to get the music made, and ideally you're successful enough with the combination of touring and merchandise and things like that, that pays for it. So the whole thing has become actually less about paying for the recorded artifact, the streaming part,
Right.
and more about, that being an opportunity to sell merch and to get people to buy concert tickets where you will also sell merch.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So it's gone back to almost the days before there were records. You know,
Yeah. Interesting.
when your principal form of income was going out and playing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that. I love live. There's nothing like live music.
Well, that was always the reality, because if you were lucky enough, or if your label did a good enough job for you to sell like 1 million albums,
Yeah.
in a year, something like that,
Yep.
you'd be selling 1 million concert tickets a week.
Right. Right. It's
So,
great.
you'd be doing stadiums
Yeah.
and making so much more money than you ever made on the record.
Right.
And I
Right.
and I think, a lot of artists came to realize this, that sometimes the music is just it's the advertisement for your other stuff.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, real musicians now are at a disadvantage, because there are there's a whole kind of class of pseudo celebrity, who just wants to build a brand out of themselves, and music is easily accessible.
Yeah.
So they start out by claiming to be, a musician, but
Yeah.
as soon as they make a name for themselves doing that, then they're selling shoes and perfume, and, got their own daytime TV show and that sort
Right,
of thing.
right, right, exactly. This I look at your career, and there's so many things that you've done. On both sides of the glass. In the booth and as a musician and everything. Is there something that you're most proud of? Is there one thing that just, you know, I did
I
that?
know that's a common question is often that you tell me the absolute something of something,
Yeah, I mean,
and I never, first of all, I don't have that kind of information, random access in my head to start with. My favorite song, let me see, out of 300, was it
right,
that one, or was it that one, or was it that one? It's the same thing with the productions, after 30 or 40 productions, was it this one or that one? Which was my favorite show that I ever played? Was it that one or this one or that one?
right.
It's,
You know your least
I,
favorite production, right?
my least favorite.
I
Oh,
know
there was
that.
no, there was probably one you never heard of.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That'll make Andy feel a little better.
Yeah, I think one that probably never came out. So,
Yeah, I appreciate every second. Thank you, Todd. Thank you so much. We'll see you out on the road, and just keep doing what you're doing. We so appreciate you. Thank you.
terrific. Thank you so much.
All right,
I'll talk to you soon.
all right. Take care, Todd.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.